Hello and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. My name is Joris and today I'm going to talk about 3 Islamic dividend ETFs for European investors. So what are Islamic ETFs? Well, Islamic ETFs, they track the performance of an index composed of companies from the indicated region and which comply with Sharia investment principles. So I'm going to talk about one World ETF, ISWD, one USA ETF, ISDU, and I put an exclamation mark there because when I talked about the USA ETFs and I mentioned the Islamic one, there I used the ticker symbol IUSF, but I changed it to YSDU because this one is the one that is on the London Stock Exchange with the dollar. So that's why I did it. And the other one is one Emergent Market ETF, and that's the ISDE. So all three are from iShares, so from BlackRock, and all three started on the 7th of December of 2007. And that's really nice because then we have also a comparing point for when they started. So the first one, YSWD, so ISWD or IUSD from iShares MSCI World Islamic UCITS ETF with the ISIN code. You can read it here and write it down if you want. So currently 27.36 US dollar on the 6th. The currency of the dividend is US dollar as well. There are 373 holdings in this ETF, and there is currently 601 million US dollar invested into the ETF. It's a fully replicated type, and if you look at the performance since its inception, almost 150%. So that's a point that we now can compare in contrast to my other videos where, yeah, the inception of the ETFs are always different. Here, those three are always inception on the same date. So here we can compare those high numbers against each other. So 5-year performance 65% up, 3-year performance the 25% up, and the last year it's up 19.4%. So the stock market really performing well this past year. It delivers half-yearly dividends in May and in November, and the dividend yield is currently 2.53%, so a little bit over 2.5%. And yeah, the ex-coupon date, ex-dividend date was yesterday, so it gave a coupon of $0.3402, and it's going to be paid the 22nd of May. So when you already had this ETF, you will receive next week the dividend from this one. And then in November, on the 16th of November, there was a distribution of $0.3523 as well. If you look at the top 10 holdings of this ETF, you can see that Microsoft makes up 17.9% of this ETF, so quite high percentage, but it can be worse, so we have to look at the next one for that. Then we have Tesla, Exxon, Mobil, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Salesforce, AMD, Chevron, Adobe, and Linde. So yeah, it's almost all US stocks here. So it's no surprise that it's 63% United States for the country's representation into the ETF. Japan 5.3, France also 5, Switzerland 3.75. So in that regard, it's more or less like all the other MSCI World ETFs. So no surprises there. and the technology sector is almost 37%. The energy sector is the next one, 14.28%, healthcare 11.63%. So overall, I think this is a really nicely distributed ETF, except of course the fact that Microsoft makes up 17.9% of this ETF. So that's a point to look at if you want to invest in it and you're not comfortable with investing in Microsoft. You might think, okay, it's a too high percentage, but yeah, I was invested, I think 20 until 13 years ago, I was invested into Microsoft, so I don't have a problem with investing in Microsoft. It's a very sound company, so in that regard, I still think that this ETF is worth looking at. Then we can go to the next one, so the ISUS or the ISDU, and I'm going to use always the ISDU ticker symbol from now on because, as I said before, it's the one on the London Stock Exchange that notes in dollar, so I think that's really important to compare all the ETFs against each other, and it's the iShares MSCI USA Islamic UCITS ETF. So on the next slide, you will see no surprises there with a lot of USA stocks. So on the London Stock Exchange, it's currently 70.83 US dollar. The currency of the dividend is also US dollar. Only 125 holdings in this ETF. 223 million is invested in this one currently, and the performance since its inception. So the other one was 150%, and this one is over 240%. So the USA stock market really outperforming the world economy actually. So yeah, if you overweigh America in the past 10-15 years, you outpace the world indexes for sure. The past 5 years, 77% up, the past 3 years, 32% up, and the past year, almost, it's 22%. It's incredible how fast and how strong the US economy, the US stock market has performed in this past year. So also 2 dividends per year in the same months as the previous one, and the dividend yield here 0.97%. So yesterday as well, ex-dividend with 0.3428 US dollars. And on the 16th of November of 2023, you received more or less the same amount of dividend. So it's going to be paid out as well on the 22nd of May. So if you held this ETF next week, you will receive your dividend as well. And if you look at the top 10 holdings, they are exactly the same as the one from the World ETF. So only the percentages are here a lot higher. For Microsoft, it's 26.34%. So if you're really not comfortable when you when you invest in this ETF and you see the percentage of Microsoft is that high, yeah, don't invest in it then. But you saw the previous slides. There are 125 holdings in this ETF. 1/4 of the ETF is Microsoft. So I personally wouldn't have a problem with it, but you have to ask yourself whether or not you are going to have a problem with it. So no surprises here. United States 93.20%. Ireland, yeah, there is a little bit of Ireland and a little bit of other countries as well represented, but the biggest part is of course the United States because it's in the name of the ETF. And here the technology sector even is almost 48%. So that's also something you need to keep in the back of your mind. Here, the technology sector makes up almost 50%, so half of the ETF. So when you're not comfortable about that, look at other ETFs if you want to invest in the USA. Of course, when you are Islamic, you don't have that much options. Certainly not in here in Europe, because in European countries, yeah, you only have the three ETFs that I mentioned here. So that that pay out dividends. You have a few others that pay accumulative, that don't pay dividends and are accumulative. But yeah, I'm a dividend investing channel, so I only mentioned the dividend ones. And then we can go to the ISDE or the IUSE, and that's the iShares MSCI Emerging Markets Islamic UCITS ETF. And on the London Stock Exchange, it's currently trading at 20.29 US dollar. The dividends as well in US dollar. And there are 322 holdings into this ETF. There is 270 million US dollar invested into this ETF. And if you look at the performance since its inception, the emerging markets are really underperforming the world market and also underperforming the US market for sure. So only up 4.63%. The past 5 years they are up 37%. The past 3 years they are even negative, so minus 2.88. But if you remember my previous video about emerging markets where I also talked about this ETF, there it was minus 10%. So with the last year performance of up 19% right now, they are really breaking grounds on reducing that minus for the 3 year performance. So yeah, it's a slight hiccup here, but if you look at the performance since 2007, that's quite terrible. But still, emerging markets, yeah, you need to invest in it as well if you want to diversify your portfolio overall, but don't put a too high percentage into emerging markets. Also, two dividends per year in May and in November. The dividend yield is 2.33%. And yeah, once again, the same scenario. They went ex-dividend yesterday. So next week they are going to pay out 0.1936 US dollar per share to the shareholders of the ETF on the 22nd of May. And on the 16th of November they went ex-dividend, and then they had a dividend of 0.2796 US dollar. Here the top 10 holdings are completely different from all the other ones that we have discussed so far. So here the top holding is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. So yeah, 24%. Once again, together with Samsung, you have 2 times Samsung here, so 11.7 and another 1.66%. So when you count those three numbers together, you have already over 36%. So when you're not comfortable with that, this one isn't for you. But yeah, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, the chip sector is of course strongly performing the past year, so that's why the 90% is there. And South Korea 21%, Taiwan 27%, India 15%. Here at least you have a nice distribution over the emergent countries. So in that regard, it's a quite nice ETF. And The technology sector here, it's a slightly lower than the Islamic ETF for the USA, but still quite high, 42%. Basic materials 13%, and energy makes up 12.11% here. So all three quite high in technology, but the World Islamic ETF that we discussed was slightly lower than 40%. It was 37%, I think. So in that regard, my preference goes out to the World ETF. It has the highest dividend yield. The 1-year performance is still quite nice. The 3-year performance is also quite nice. Only over since the inception. So it performed 100% less than the ISDU one. So in that regard, it's not that great, but the past 5 years, it's keeping up quite good compared to the USA market. So yeah, also better diversification for me, more companies. Um, the USA not overrepresented. Yeah, I love because it's normal, of course, that USA is overrepresented in the one that is for the USA market. But yeah, 63% of USA, it's already a lot, and I like Europe a lot as well. So that's why I would prefer the investing into the World ETF. But yeah, it's always up to you. It's not financial advice. I just give an overview of the 3 ETFs that you can buy in Europe that invest according to the Sharia rules. So when you are an Islamic person and you want to invest your money and you want to receive dividends, you only have these 3 choices here in Europe. So in Switzerland, you can buy the ISWD on the SIX stock exchange. You can also buy this one on the London stock exchanges and the German stock exchanges. But these other two, you can only buy on the London stock exchange and the German stock exchanges, and on the Italian stock exchange as well, I think, but I don't know for sure. I need to check on just ETF for that. But at least you can look up these ETFs with the ticker symbols that I provide, also with the easing code. So you can go back to the previous slides, pause the video there, write down the easing codes and look them up if you live in Europe, and find out where you can buy them and if your provider provides them for you on that stock market. So with that being said, thank you for your attention. Please consider subscribing if you like this kind of content. Hit that like button as well. It helps out the channel enormously. And with that being said, I thank you for watching and see you on the next one on my YouTube channel. Bye.